teachers and examiners hate paragraphs and essays that lack purpose. You're not writing a novel or a poem or a biography. You're answering a question using a specific structure. Make a quick plan. Just before we start writing, I hate to tell you, but you do need to make a quick plan. You should never start writing without thinking the question through. If you start writing without planning, you end up deleting entire sections and wasting heaps of time. You need to set a direction for your essay. Let's plan my essay. It will only take a few seconds and it's going to relate to yours. So my essay prompt says, in some countries, most people prefer to rent their houses rather than buy their houses. And the question asks, what is an advantage and a disadvantage of renting a home? So we need to think for a minute here. In order to write my essay, I need to come up with one advantage of renting a house and one disadvantage of renting a house. That's what the question asked, so that's what we better do. Advantage of renting, well, what about you can move house when you want? Disadvantage of renting, well, it's kind of a waste of money because you're not paying off the house. That was pretty easy. My tip here is to think the question through, relax, and come up with the main idea or ideas. If you can identify the most important idea or ideas, then your essay will come together and flow much more easily. If you get stuck on minor ideas, it becomes harder to write. But cool, I have my main ideas, so I'm now ready to write my essay. Ready? The introduction. All right, so we're going to write a 3-part introduction. Not necessarily 3 sentences. You can write more sentences if you want, but there needs to be 3 parts. First, you need to write a broad background statement. Second, you need to rewrite the question prompt in your own words. Third, you need to write a thesis statement. Stay with me, this isn't hard. I'll show you how to write mine and you can follow along and copy the same structure for your essay at the same time. So, number 1, the introduction sentence where we write a broad background statement. Your first sentence is very broad. You almost need to pretend that your teacher or examiner or whoever's going to read your essay has no idea of what you're writing about. And as such, you need to give them some background information. You can't just jump straight into your arguments. You need to set the context. So let's look at my question prompt and let me show you a great first sentence for your essay. In some countries, most people prefer to rent their houses rather than buy their houses. All right, so what's the broad social context here? Every essay has a social context. Well, this one is about renting versus buying houses. So I'm going to write something like, for some people, the dream of owning a home is not possible or is unfavorable. Pretty simple, right? I've written a simple sentence. It's almost obvious, and yours needs to be obvious as well. Don't make it confusing or profound. I've simply written that some people can't buy a house or don't want to buy a house. It's actually a great opening sentence. Remember that essay diagram I showed you earlier? Let's look at it again. So the introduction is an upside down pyramid, and your first sentence, the first sentence of the introduction, is broad. Introduction sentence number 2, rewrite the essay prompt in your own words. So the second sentence of your introduction should simply rewrite the essay prompt in your own words. Another way to say this is you need to paraphrase the essay prompt. So let's do it to mine. Here's the prompt. In some countries, most people prefer to rent their houses rather than buy their houses. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this essay prompt. Not the question, the prompt, the first part. Mine says, in some countries, many people decide that renting their home is preferable to buying it. Notice how some words and phrases are exactly the same. That's fine. Notice how some words are the same, but I've changed the word forms like prefer and preferable. And notice that I've used some synonyms, different words that have very similar or the same meaning. And I've also used a pronoun instead of a noun there as well. So far, so good. We've started broad and now we're tightening our essay. We're focusing in. Your teacher or examiner so far will be super impressed. Who's this wonderful student, they'll ask. Introduction sentence number 3. Write your thesis statement. Tell the reader what you will write about. So a thesis just means an argument or your position or what you think, okay? So here we tell the reader, your teacher or examiner, our 2 ideas from our plan. Let me show you mine. My thesis statement says, in this essay, I will discuss why renting can allow for a more flexible lifestyle, but why it can eventually be financially disadvantageous. Can you see the 2 ideas from my plan in here? And can you see how explicit I'm being? I will discuss, or you can write, I will compare, or I will argue, or I will show, and then simply write your 2 ideas. Let's now continue on to the body paragraph.